Hey Mike, I really enjoyed your video on education. I thought I'd pose a few questions and offer a few suggestions regarding your argument, so got a little list right here. Alright, so let's just jump right in. I think your argument could really benefit from a discussion of the kind of role that the internet might play in the system that you're suggesting. I mean, the internet's already challenging the structure of the education system in important ways, because it offers this really relatively inexpensive access to mountains and mountains and mountains of information. But one of the problems with it is that it's not always coherently organized or organized in a way that's useful for education. There have been significant efforts to change that though. There are dozens of YouTube channels dedicated to education some way or another. And of course there are websites like Coursera and Khan Academy that go a step further beyond just organizing the information, but also provide a framework to assess users and to kind of chart their progress through whatever discipline they're trying to master. I think another way you could strengthen your argument is to provide a few examples of systems that are similar to what you're suggesting that exist now or have existed in the past. And maybe flesh out what's admirable about these systems or what made them better or work particularly well. And maybe address what obstacles did they face and how would your system work differently in addressing those obstacles so it wouldn't face the same problems, I guess. Now onto the more speculative side of things. Do you think this kind of system would adequately prepare people to participate in more like information-oriented economy? In that, not facts are kind of cheap now. Retention of facts isn't as important as the ability to understand and interpret those facts, and also being able to communicate those interpretations effectively. I think studying independently or with a tutor is good to kind of help retain facts and principles, but I think it might fall short in cultivating people's ability to communicate and interpretate and all that kind of stuff. So just something to consider. I'm sure there's an obvious solution to this. It's just something that I could see being a potential problem. So I think it's worth speculating what kind of structures might emerge from the system. What kind of relationship this might foster between these private instructors and their individual students. I think the system might incentivize instructors to take on as many students as they can, sort of like what's happening in the medical industry with doctors and psychiatrists. So there might be concerns as to what kind of effect this might have on the quality of education the students are receiving. But if there's more of a focus on independent study and things like that, it might not be as big of a problem. So I don't know. Then what about private schools? I don't think getting rid of public schools will necessarily abolish private schools. In fact, I think it might create more of a market for them because people might turn to private schools for the things they provide beyond just education. As much as high school sucked, I think there definitely could be an argument made for high school being an important platform for socialization and for social cohesion. I think we'd be radically different people if we didn't attend it, just from a social perspective. High schools kind of offer this a baseline for community and socialization that I don't know, it's not as easy to find nowadays. Maybe things would be different if there was no high school, but I don't know. I mean, also, from a cynical perspective, it kind of serves as like a daycare for teenagers and things like that, keep them out of parents' hair so they could go work or whatever. So if people are increasingly turning to high schools for these reasons rather than just the solely educational ones, couldn't this potentially turn high schools into like country clubs for adolescents, making the social aspects of high school luxury? Of course, there's a possibility for voluntary educational cooperatives, sort of like what you see with homeschooling networks now. Which brings me to another point, which is that I think if you really want to engage with these questions, you should check out the common arguments for and against homeschooling, barring the religious reasons. I think you could find some pretty interesting ways to support your argument, and also maybe anticipate what criticisms you might face. Now let's talk about workplace testing. Workplace testing does exist now in a pretty big way. I think many industries might resist the burden of evaluating possible candidates, but on the same token, many already do have a process for doing that, so I don't think it'd be too much for them to elaborate on that. What I think this might lead to if employers are finding that they're not receiving enough qualified applicants under the system, like not enough people are coming to them with the skills that they need to properly do the jobs that they're asking them to do. I think that there's a potential for many companies to set up schools of their own to train people in the specific skills that they need to perform their job properly. I know that there are already many examples of this kind of thing that exist. Also, trade schools. Look at trade schools. I know many of them are set up by the companies that intend to employ the people that are produced. So, I don't know, look into that. I think you should definitely check out the testing process for public employees like policemen and firemen, things like that, because I'm aware that they have to go through some levels of training and things like that, and do get tested, of course, in order to qualify for the job. Well, I'm getting a little out of my depth now, so I'm going to just cut it off there. I think you bring up some interesting ideas, and I'd love to see you elaborate on them further. I've included a few links in the description for videos and articles, a few regarding the role of the internet in education, a few kind of outlining the problems with the education system now, more specifically with higher education, which I didn't really spend a lot of time talking about, but maybe if we get more of a dialogue going, it'll come up. So yeah, I really enjoyed the video, and I hope you keep cranking them out. All right? Okay. See ya.